Hello friends, and welcome back to another episode of Header Navigation Masterclass. In the last session, we took a look at how to build a mobile menu, a custom mobile menu with an animated toggle. And there's been some requests to show how to do a push menu. So a situation where you do something like this, where the menu pushes down the content. So I thought, okay, I was going to update this tutorial that we already have here with a push navigation. And you are going to see how surprisingly easy it is to implement, beginning from where we left off. Okay, so I'm going to go into Oxygen. Then, of course, I'm going to go to my header. And inside my header, I'm going to select my mobile menu wrapper. Okay, then I'm going to switch to the mobile breakpoint we're working with, which is less than 768 pixels. And I want to make a few changes to this before we proceed. One of the things I want to do is basically a cosmetic change. So I'm going to go to the code. I'm going to go to the CSS. I just want to make some changes to this hamburger menu. And then what I want to do is I'm going to go to the after. On the left, I'm going to just copy that value 0. And then I'm going to make it 10 pixels. Okay. 10 pixels. So that's going to make it a little bit shorter than the first one. And then I'm going to go to, now we're on toggle after, so I'm going to go to toggle.active after, and then I'm going to reset that to left 0. So that is going to allow us to have this nice effect where this is a bit shorter. Just in my opinion, makes it look cooler, and then of course everything works the way it was. The second thing we're going to do as an update to the previous tutorial is let's take a look at this menu. Okay, so let's say you have a menu, right? And then you added more menu items, using the WordPress menu as we've done. And for instance, we have theme here. Now I'm just going to duplicate this element like 3 times. Okay. Now you see that this pushes the button all the way down and the menu did not grow with it. Of course, if we select a menu, we can see that a menu height is 420 pixels. And then if we increase it, we're going to see the button. So that is the downside of this method that I used in the previous tutorial, and thanks to Josh Olmstead, hope I got your name right, that just pointed me in the right direction and said we could animate it using the maximum height. And I took a look at that, and it was I think it was a very good solution to that. So so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this mobile menu, okay, and then I'm going to go to the size and spacing. What we had here was height 0, so I'm going to set the height to auto, okay, and then what I want to do is to set the maximum height to 0. So we're going to animate the maximum height. So I'm going to go into effect, transition. I'm going to change the transition property to max height, and then so I'm going to go back to the CSS, okay, and in our active class, instead of animating the height, I'm going to make changes to the max height, okay, and then I'm going to give this a very big value like 1000 pixel. It's very unlikely that our menu will grow over 1000 pixels. As we already see, we have the computed height plus the padding, everything is not even up to 600 pixel, I would say. So even if we go to the style, you see we have 500 pixels. So and most of the screen sizes are not even up to 1000 pixels. So using 1000 pixel is actually on the safe side. So so yeah, I'm going to save that, and then we're going to refresh, and then so now we are animating the maximum height. Of course, we didn't have our paddings. Okay, so you can see we are animating the maximum height. Now if I do the same thing that I did, okay, and then I duplicate this element, you can see that the height grows with it. So let me quickly add padding to the inner wrap. So I'm going to go to the menu, okay, I'm going to go to, so for this to work, for you to have that padding, now if you have a padding here, that menu will not close up properly. So you have to have, let's make everything 0, okay. So what I'm going to do is just to wrap this inner menu contents with another wrapper, okay, and then of course I'm going to move this button there. So I'm just going to call this rename it to inner wrap. Oh dear, I pressed the wrong thing. Okay, so I'm gonna rename that and just call it inner wrap, just inner wrap. All right, so I'm gonna make that a width of 100%. Okay, and I think that's basically it. So what I want to do is now, for us to see, if you want to see what you're doing, you can just select the mobile menu wrapper and add the class of active to it so you can see what is going on. And so I'm going to select that inner wrap again. Okay, of course we've set it to a width of 100%, and then I'm going to set the padding. So I'm just going to set padding up and down to 20 pixels. Okay, so that should take care of it. And remember, we had a padding on our menu, so I'm just going to remove that padding. We had one rem. Okay, I'm just going to remove it. Okay, so then that should be it. I'm going to save that and refresh, and that should give us something nice. Of course, we have to set this alignment right. Okay, that would show us here. Okay, so we have that. So that's going to make this button move all the way to the right. Okay, so that's all. We're done with that. Now the next we're going to do, of course, why is this button, we already have a padding of 20. Okay, so we need a padding on the left also. Okay, on the right. So I'm going to go there, and of course we go to this breakpoint, and yeah, just make everything 20 pixels. Okay, and the menu must have had a padding on the right, which it's pushing it aside. I'm not quite sure where that is coming from, but I will not waste time on that. Okay, so it's probably in the menu settings, but I just want to quickly go ahead and and do this. So we have that. So it's in the menu settings. Okay, let me just do that. I always find myself going back when I say I don't want to waste time. So you have 20 here. So on the highest breakpoint, you're just going to take that, make that 0. Okay, because we can't change it on the lower breakpoints. That is I think it should be a bug from Oxygen. So you see everything aligns properly. Okay, so we have that sorted. Now how do we make this a push? Okay, let's remove that active class that we put there. Alright, now how do we make this a push menu? How do we make this push down the content? Okay, now of course you know that while we're building the header, you assume I'm already assuming you understand that we are going to build this in maybe you're using a global template to build this. So typically you'll have your header and then you'll have your inner content. So for the sake of argument, let all of this represent the inner content. Okay, all from here all the way down represents your inner content. Okay, so if I wrap this with a div, okay, and set this div to a width of 100%, okay, and then I call this inner content just for the sake of it. Okay, all right, so if I call that inner content and I begin to move my stuff inside them, I just want to separate that, the whole content, from the header. That is why I'm doing this. But typically you'll build this in your main template. Okay, so let's say this is our inner content, and of course the footer will not be part of the inner content. All right, split menu code. Let me just move all the codes outside here. Mobile menu code. All right, let me just do that. Move all the code outside. All right. Okay, so we have the header, and then we have the inner contents, and then you have the footer. Now what you want to do is now to achieve the push down effect, you're going to go to that mobile menu wrapper. Okay, and you're going to move it outside. Now it's inside this header row 1. Okay, so we can move it outside the header row. Okay, let's just move this on top of it. So yeah, that's outside the header row. Of course we actually want to move it outside the header, and then we want to place it in between the header and the inner content. Okay, so what is that? All right, so this is it. And then of course it moves all the way down to the bottom here. It's because it's position absolute. So what I'm going to do is to just go in and disable that position absolute. We don't want it to be position absolute again. So it's somewhere here now. So if I go in and apply that active, so you can see that it's just a div in between the header and the inner content. So that automatically pushes that inner content down when it grows. So I'm just going to take out that active state and save this, and then I'm going to refresh. And when I hit that, you can see that that pushes the content down. And I kind of feel that I should just do something with that animation duration. Okay, so I think we had set that up in the CSS. So the transition duration, okay, it wasn't in the CSS. So let's go back to effects, transition. I think 3 is good. And I'm also going to just try something. Okay, all right, so that pushes down, and at this point I think you're done with the tutorial, but let me just do a little bit of a tweak to see what we can do. So let's say, so we have this animate, okay, and I want to do something with this timing function. Just want to set that, maybe give it a bit more, something like that. So you have that, and then of course, so that just gives it a more interesting animation. So it goes slow and then speeds up. All right, let's do that. All right, so that will mean I should increase, maybe I could increase this to 2.5. That gives me, that's going to give a more interesting, okay. And of course, that is for, yeah. So for the active, we could do the same thing. All right, so I can copy this declaration. If I paste it here, and then of course I can copy this transition duration declaration. All right, I'm going to paste it here. So we have the same, something like that. So that just gives us a cool effect. Okay, so if I go back here to the timing function, and then I paste this, from there, reduce that. So if I have that, and then I change this to say 5, let me say 0.5 or 0.6. Okay, so that should give me what I want. Okay, so give me that nice cool effect. Maybe a 0.5 is good. All right, so that's it for the push menu. Okay, now you may wonder, okay, so what are we going to do if we want to have these effects where the body of the site darkens while this comes out? Oh, that can be done. So what you need to do is, in that case, so let's say you have your inner content. Okay, like I said, we assume this is the inner content. So what you're going to do is to wrap your inner content with a div. Okay, so and now I'm going to rename that with I'm going to call it maybe site wrapper. Okay, so that wraps the whole site apart from the heading. Okay, and in this case the footer will have to be inside that site wrapper. Okay, where you have the inner content, and then the header is different. Okay, now inside there you're gonna drop a div, and then let's just move it to the top, and we're gonna call that div overlay. Okay, just call it overlay. All right, I'm gonna give it a class of overlay. Okay, all right, now I'm gonna change the site wrapper's position. Okay, so I'm just gonna give that a class of site wrapper. Okay, then I'm gonna give it a position, okay, of relative, and then I'm gonna make this overlay absolute positioned. So absolute position. Okay, and I'm gonna give it a top of 0, 0. Everything was gonna be 0. Okay, now let's go and set a color to it. So I'm gonna set a background color to the overlay, so you can see that, and then I'm gonna move it to the top. So I'm gonna set a Z index of, say, maybe 10. Okay, so you see that covers everywhere except the mobile menu and the header. Okay, because it's inside the site wrapper. Now that is not the color I want it to be. Okay, so I want it to be transparent. Okay, I want it to be transparent. Now what we want to do is that when we have this menu open, we want to add an active class to that an active class to that overlay. When we have that active class, then we're going to change this value to say maybe a transparency of maybe 0.5, okay, maybe something like that, okay, so, or maybe 0.4 depending on your taste. So for now I'm going to leave that like that. So I'm going to go back to the code. Of course we have this, the class is called header. I'm going to go back to the mobile menu code, okay, and then I'm just going to create another constant. I'm just going to say overlay, okay, is equals to let me just copy this and then replace this with the class dot overlay. All right, now I'm gonna just open menu. We're gonna copy this, okay, and just say toggle active class overlay, okay. So we're gonna change this to overlay okay, yeah, the problem there is supposed to be LA. All right, okay, so we have that. So we're gonna add an active class to that overlay, okay. So that's basically what we want to do. Now let's go back to that overlay and then define what do we want the active class to be like, okay. So I'm going to go back to that overlay, and then we'll first of all set the transition, okay, for that overlay to say points. A menu transition is about 0.5, so I'm going to do the same, okay. I don't really care about the timing function, okay, but I could just drop in ease there. Then the property we're going to animate will be the opacity. Okay, so we're going to animate the opacity. That's what we want to transit. And then I'm going to go to the code, all right, and go to the CSS, and then I want to add here. So let me just add this comment and call it the overlay, and then I'm just going to say dot overlay, okay, dot active, and then what color do we want it to be? We want it to be the background color, okay, will be RGBA, okay. It's gonna be 0.3, so 0, 0.4, okay. So that's basically it, and let's save. And then now let's go and check what happens here. So we have our overlay. Let's see. Okay, so you can see the problem we're having here is that overlay is interfering. Now let me turn this off. Okay, it's interfering with certain things. So let's first of all check what the problem is. We have a site wrapper, and then we have overlay. Okay. So what's the problem? Something is pushing something away, okay. All right, something is really terrible. The site wrapper, flex direction, okay. The site wrapper, did we give it a width of 100%? Okay, something is wrong there. So what is the problem? Let's go to here. Okay, let's see what is causing the problem. I'm going to delete this overlay and see if that's what is causing the problem. Okay, I'm going to undo that. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Okay, so what I'm going to do is this one. Okay, I'm going to set it to 100%. See. Alright, so the problem was that we did not set that. So I'm going to go back to this, what I call the inner content, okay? Of course, I did set that to 100%, but it was at this breakpoint. So, so I'm going to just cut that out, okay? I'm going to go to a higher breakpoint. So that's a mistake, okay? I should have put that here, 100%, okay? Alright. And what is going on here? What am I? The site wrapper. What is this? The overlay. So of course, you know, the problem we have is that we were walking here. Okay, so you have to make sure that you set these properties. Let me go to that overlay. So at that breakpoint it wasn't positioned absolute, so I'm just gonna do that. Okay, I'm gonna set that at the bigger breakpoint. That's a mistake. Okay, so the mistake in walking on the lower breakpoints, and of course here I really don't need to do that to make that setting, so everything should work now. Okay, so at the higher breakpoint nothing breaks. Okay, so be careful of that mistake where you walk only on the small breakpoint. And then for this I'm just going to set the width to 100% for the footer. Okay, so just be careful of walking on the lower breakpoint and then you have issues on the higher breakpoint. Okay, so for now things should look okay, so I'm just going to refresh this and you can see that, see, I can't click this button, and that is because this is what is causing the issue. Okay, and I wonder why it stops here. So if this overlay, if I give it a background of, let's say, black, okay, so you can see that it stops here. And why does it stop there is what I don't understand. So we have our inner content. This is supposed to be bottom 0. Okay, and this is supposed to be the site wrapper. Okay, so something is terribly wrong there. The site wrapper goes all the way down, so at this breakpoint the site wrapper should also be position relative. Okay, so we also forgot that, so still the same issues we had at all breakpoints. So should be position relative. Okay, and here there's no need to redeclare that. Okay, I'm gonna save this and I'm gonna refresh it, and then if I give this overlay background of the black, okay, so you can see it covers everywhere. Okay, it covers everywhere, and because of that, let me reduce opacity. Because of that, I'm unable to select anything or click the button. So to be able to bypass that, you have to set the pointer event to none. Okay, and then you will be able to click buttons and interact with your page. So without that, you can't interact with your page, you can't do anything. Okay, because it's on top of the content. All right, so pointer event none. So I'm just going to copy that declaration and go to that overlay. All right, just drop that in the custom CSS. Okay, but I think I would like to take that out and just drop it in the code, because we still need to do something. Now split menu code, mobile menu code, and so I'm just gonna say dot overlay. Okay, pointer event none. Then so I'm gonna save that, and okay, let's go back to our mobile menu, and then so you can see that if we click on it, that happens. So the overlay takes effect. Okay, all right, so that overlay takes effect, but you can still click and select your you can still click and select your your items. You can see that you can interact with your items. Okay, but then it pushes this content down. Okay, so it feels laggy here, I'm not quite sure why. So we need to have a transition. Okay, we already did that, but we need to have also have a transition. Let's put a transition on this. What did we do? The transition was on what? Let's go back there. Effects. The overlay, did we have a transition effect? No, we did not. Did we? I think we did. Overlay. here we had 0.5 transition opacity, which is wrong. What we needed to transit was the background color. Okay, and I think I should, for the sake of to foolproof it, let's make opacity also, and also visibility. So yeah, so I'm going to save that, and let's go back to the code. So I'm just going to say opacity, okay, 0, and then here I'm just going to make that 1 in the active. Okay, so I'm going to save that, and then we can add visibility hidden here. Visibility hidden, and then we can just come here and add visibility visible. Okay, all right. So I'm not sure if it's a good idea to animate visibility, because I think it's okay to just do for opacity and background color. All right, so I'm just gonna go back there and remove that visibility there, because I don't think you can animate that, you can transit that. So let me save this and see. So it looks okay. Okay, all right. All right, so that's it. That's how you can do the push down menu. Okay, I really hope we don't have any issues. The only issues we had was when we forgot to add those things at the higher breakpoints. Another thing you could do is, if you really don't want to add the, tweak it on the higher breakpoint, you could set the overlay display to none on the higher breakpoints, and you'll still have the same result, and then bring it back on the lower breakpoint. Another thing I don't like is how this just disappears immediately you remove that active class. So I think for the active states, okay, I think I should add an animation duration too. Okay, so mobile menu code. So this already have a transition. Okay, so I'm just gonna set the transition to 0.5 seconds, and then transition properties, okay, will be the opacity and background color. Okay, so I think that should work. That should cause that to, let's refresh that. I still don't like the fact that once that active goes out, something is not right. Okay, let's see. Okay, so this is supposed to be property, not properties. Okay, so that's a mistake. Transition property. Yep, save that, and so we have 0.5 seconds. Is that really working? Is it really working? Let me check. Let's say 2 seconds to be sure. Yeah, okay, so that is for the active, and then for the not active, I'm not seeing any transition duration here. Okay, 0.5 property, background color, opacity, another timing function. Okay, so I found out that the problem with this is if you have all this, like these two, it puts too much on the animation. Okay, so I'm just gonna remove that, and then I'm gonna remove this. Okay, yep, I'm gonna remove that visibility and opacity. It just doesn't make it look okay. And then of course I'm gonna go in there. I think this is why I like having everything in one place in the CSS. Jumping in and out, it's really not the best experience. So I'm gonna change this back to background color. Okay, and I think that's it. Save that and then refresh, and there, still having the same problem. Yeah, background color. Yep, something's wrong there. Background color. Okay, let's go back. All right, so that looks good. Okay, so it doesn't just abruptly change to, you know, to transparent. Is some form of duration. Okay, so I guess I could just bump this up to say 0.8. all right, so that's ridiculous, but let's say it just gradually fades out. All right, so I like it that way. It may not translate exactly to the same experience on an actual device, so you adjust it accordingly. All right, thank you once again for waiting for the remaining part of this tweaking. And all right, hope to see you again. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. Have a great day.